Hello, new interns. We are back with another conversation with another intern, and today I'm going to be speaking with Jack Menghini. He was recently a marketing intern for Disruptive Sports Agency, and we're pretty much going to be learning about what he was able to do in that role and how he was able to get it. So he'll be introduced through the course of his answers. And for now, I want to know first question, Jack, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. End of the day, feels good. Um, it's always good to know more about kind of who we're talking to before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of what you've done. So I kind of want to ask you first, Jack, like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in San Diego in this small town, Del Mar. It's a beach town.
Mhm.
And I've really loved it here. So yeah, that's where I grew up.
Awesome. I'm actually jealous of you because I'm from SF, but I love beach towns, man. I wish I could have been born there. Now, as far as school goes, can you share a little bit about where you're currently going, your expected grad date, yeah, and maybe your major?
Yeah, of course. So currently I am attending Loyola Marymount University or LMU. I
Mm.
am a marketing major and my current grad year is 2024. And currently I am in the A-list pathway, which is basically the entertainment side of marketing.
Okay,
And I've really enjoyed it so far and my experience there.
solid.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. I know there are a lot of people who, honestly, it's more common than not that people kind of have poor experiences in their final years of school. So that's good that you're having a good time. And in your free time, when you're not doing academics or working, what do you like to spend your time doing?
I I keep myself very busy.
Okay.
Um, I always try to make time for myself,
Mhm.
even when I'm super busy. So I like to go to the gym. I like to go biking. I love going to the beach, beach
Mhm.
volleyball, playing soccer, pick up basketball. I just picked up the guitar recently.
Oh, dang.
I've been doing open mic nights.
Really?
Um, yeah,
Whoa.
just getting out of my comfort zone and just doing a lot of things um, that I might have been too scared to do in the past.
Uh-huh.
Photography, the list goes on, but I do a
Right.
lot of stuff with my free time and I really enjoy it. So yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Like seriously, for the open mic nights, is that you're not part of a band, right? But you is it like singing or
Yeah, it's just open mic where you just go sing, like do some karaoke.
Mhm.
And I just did it to kind of like push myself out of my comfort zone because I have really bad stage fright.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And
Yeah.
it's been really cool just to further my development upon myself. And,
Mhm.
really, it's a little extreme, but to push yourself out of that comfort zone, and I don't regret it at all. So, yeah.
That's super impressive, honestly. Um, Now, more towards your recent role. You were a marketing intern. Can you share? I just answered the first question I was going to ask, which is what was your title? But can you share um, the company one more time that you were working for and what kind of a company they are, just
Of
briefly?
course. So I worked for Disruptive Sports Agency, and so they're a minority-owned sports agency, and we have 8 players. Majority are in the NFL, and then there's one or two in college.
Mhm.
And basically, the idea behind is that it's disrupting the industry in the sense that a lot of times nowadays you see players with brands, but you're
Mhm.
like, that doesn't always align, like we want to make sure that the vision that Disruptive has is making sure that, it really aligns with the players' um, charisma and personality and their interests,
Mhm.
so that it's equally beneficial for the player as well. Not saying it's the biggest issue, but it's
Right.
definitely becoming a more relevant issue, I would say. But I just like the vision and the passion behind it and how they're trying to do something different in that industry in the first place. But
Uh,
that's a little bit about Disruptive, yeah.
Could you, so when you say, I'm unfamiliar with this field, this market, when you say Disruptive has players, you mean that they represent them? Can you tell me just a little bit more about, I guess, what that means, having players and yeah.
So we represent them, doing their marketing and such. So for brand partnerships, kind of just like more of the advertisement side
Mhm.
of the game. I can't really speak too much more on that stuff, but
Sure.
that's just a brief answer for you. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. And can you kind of, as much as you can and as much as you remember, because I know it might have been a while ago, but can you share kind of what led you to this position and how you earned it? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, of course. I being at junior year, I like any junior was very stressed about, where I'm going to land that internship because, a lot of people were
Yeah.
it's crunch time. You need to get that internship. And so I went out, I applied to a bunch of, positions and I saw this role and I was really I've always been passionate about sports. I mean, I think a lot of guys are. Um, and I applied to it and with my work history, I didn't, it doesn't seem like on paper I would be the right match.
Mhm.
How does he match with that? Based off of my resume and the stuff I had going in, but
Right.
due to a pure passion I had for it, I made an Instagram account when I was younger in like high school where just out of pure fun, like just because I like doing it, I made edits of like football players and
Oh, cool.
I grew the Instagram to 3,000, 4,000 followers, um, which
Dang.
was very, yeah, it was very unheard of at the time because it was like 2016, 2017, and I was just doing it for fun. I really liked it, and most of it was done from my phone, just in my spare time, and I got some attention from actual players in the league, and it was really cool.
Whoa.
Um, so based off of that, obviously not my work experience as much.
Uh-huh.
Um, I really believed in myself and thought I should try to go for this.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that with my knowledge for like football and such, I think helped me really get this position in the first place. Yeah.
That's crazy. You had actual players from the league who reached out to you for this account. That's really impressive. You went the personal project route. That seems to be successful for a lot of people who are applying. When you were during this application process in your junior year, did you apply to a lot of different places? I'm just kind of curious, like the volume of how many applications you sent out.
Of course. I applied to a decent amount. I would say I didn't apply as much as most people have due to my experiences with my other jobs, and I've had quite a few jobs leading up to this. Um, not saying that in snobby way or anything like that, but I just have a lot of experience already under my belt,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of other things that aren't on my resume that I can speak about as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I did apply, I think, to like 50 or no, it was sorry, 70, 75.
Oh, that's a lot.
Um, I personally didn't think it was too many. I've heard much more from other people in my
Sure.
class,
Yeah, yeah.
but I think it was 75 from what I remember.
And what kind of, now you mentioned that when you applied, you weren't entirely sure that your past experience was super, super relevant, but you're saying that you actually did have a lot of experience in general. Can you speak more to that?
Of course. So, um, having my background be from working at a law firm, working two retail jobs, and then working at a hotel, um, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like, on paper at least, it doesn't seem like, oh, he's going to go to a sports agency. It doesn't seem very realistic in that sense. But at the same time, I do have to say I've learned a lot through those jobs as well. Seeing all the marketing campaigns and the marketing side of things
Mhm.
has always been very interesting and kind of made me tick or like made me very passionate about that stuff.
Uh,
Um, but I would say that's why, because they're not typically, what you would expect for someone
sure.
um, who got this position. Yeah,
And during your interviews, which I'm assuming you did have for Disruptive, that's correct. Yeah. Did you, or to the best of your ability, kind of what do you think they were most interested in knowing about you during their conversations with you?
definitely. If I could talk the talk, if I, really knew the sports world and how, like, my knowledge on, the certain players and, football players in this case.
Mhm.
Um, and I was asked to do some analogies. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but right in the moment, I was asked to do some analogies on, players that really align with the brands they do deals with and such. Um, so I think it was just having that passion, going with that, yeah, and going with what I already knew, and just being confident in myself.
And when you say analogies, that's like you had to kind of envision players that you think would have aligned with Disruptive, like their brand.
Definitely, yeah. So I would say, like, blank player um, does stuff with this brand. I believe because they like this, kind of almost like bullet points, kind of list out why they're together. Those two align, and then why they would also align with disruptive as well.
So you
Um,
really you have a deep understanding of sports, obviously, like to be able to do that.
I believe I do. I'm not one to be like that, but it was cool because I've always been into that stuff, so it was cool.
And one last question about Disruptive: Are they? I'm not sure if you mentioned it. Are they exclusively one type of sport, like football, or is it cross multiple sports?
Of course. So we do only currently have football players right now, but before I joined, we had, I think, it was just one basketball player. Personally, I can't really speak on this much more
Sure.
um, and such, but that's
Yeah,
my answer. Yeah,
no worries. And are they like considered a startup? Or are they a relatively new company, or have they kind of been around for a while?
they're relatively new. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I would say they're pretty new.
Cool. Okay. Well, I like how some people they have referrals, and it is interesting to interview people with referrals who get in. But hearing that the good old fashioned way through the application process that you earned your spot, that's always reassuring. And I'm sure to the people watching this and reading it, that's going to be great. So congrats on getting that, by the way.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
more towards what you did. And again, I know you have to be careful with what you say, which is totally fine, but I'm hoping you can give sort of an overview. Before we go too in depth, I'm going to ask you follow up questions, but if you could explain basically what you did for Disruptive, that would be fantastic.
Of course. So just, in this role, I did a lot of research on brands that I thought would align with us and would work on ongoing projects that were left by the previous group of interns as well.
Mm,
And basically working on brand partnerships, sponsorships, and working to get product for our kit, which we send out annually for our players within the agency as well. Um, that's a pretty general answer, but more or less that, and then also a little bit of negotiating as well for
okay.
certain deals. Yeah, and discussing what it would look like, the deliverables, the time, you know, what products would be sent, whose social media account would this be posted to,
Mhm.
um, and just talking with you know brands and um, it was very fascinating just to see the infrastructure within a lot of brands, um, and how brands are run behind the scenes as well. So that's a quick summary, I would say, of what I've done.
That's a lot, by the way, of stuff that you've done. I'm going to go through pretty much each one of those and kind of see if there's anything else we can pull out of that. Um, but before, actually, I'm hoping, could you give sort of like maybe a day-to-day experience of maybe a day of your work, how it might look like?
Um, it's hard to say every day look the same, but in general, it would be a lot of, you know, obviously I would know um, the players that I'm looking to align with brands for. And
Mhm.
so based off of that, I would research the brands that would match with the criteria of the player. So a lot of it was research, um, but it was very interesting trying to figure out how to do all of that at first,
Yeah.
um, and getting advice from the agency, obviously, how to do that initially, and just
Mhm.
kind of having the freedom um, to be able to reach out to certain brands and such.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say mostly researching, and
Mhm.
then based off of your research, seeing, you know, who aligns and kind of just reaching out, and if not reaching out, um, going through some other ways as well.
Sure.
Um, but that was mainly what I would do day to day
Mhm.
overall, I would say. Um, I can't really speak too much more on that.
Yeah, yeah. No, of course, that's your. There's a lot of research going on, especially research for players and brands that align with them. But obviously, every now and then, you probably had like overarch some ongoing projects and stuff that you'd be working on, and other stuff that you mentioned. So I do want to touch on the ongoing projects that you had. I'd imagine there were at least a few, um, and I'm hoping you can. Well, if you can't, that's okay. But I'm going to still ask. Could you give an example of one of the a project that you might have been working on?
I I'm actually not allowed to talk about
Oh,
it.
no
I'm so
worries.
sorry.
Okay, I'm going to prod again at something else. We'll see. You did mention. Well, I guess you did explain it then. That because you mentioned that there you had to do things that related to partnerships and sponsorships, which seems that sounds beyond research. Um, and because you also mentioned a little bit of negotiating, so you were either talking with a client or players. Um, is that something that was very frequent? The actually speaking with clients, or was it every now and then?
Speaking with clients, I would say it was very frequent. Um, it was always when I did, it was always different, and
Mhm.
all these people are quite busy within the industry, and you
Right.
gotta really know, you have to really be on top of your stuff, and just make sure you stay connected with them and respond very quickly if you're trying to reach out to people.
Mhm.
But I would say frequently I would come into contact with the clients.
So essentially, I mean, I'd imagine you were nervous for the at least the first couple ones that you had to do, right?
I definitely I would say I was, but with a lot of the advice I got from the agency and my boss, I kind of got more comfortable with it. And you learn, like with negotiating, just being prepared and just asking a lot of the right questions. Keep it, you know, you want to learn more about what your client wants and their vision with you. Um, So to keep it more on their end when you're in that situation, and just stay calm and just deep breaths and just do your research. You can't go into these unprepared. You really do have to be prepared, and if you don't know something, you have to be very confident and kind of own it.
Mhm.
Um, is
So
basically, yeah.
your job or part of these. these calls, these talks, this communication with your clients, it, you need you're asking them essentially what their vision is for how disruptive can help them, but you you really need to know, like, to a T, what your agency does so that you don't offer something that you don't offer, right? So you're like, you had to know, you had to learn very well the inside and out of disruptive, I'd imagine.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I was definitely the intern, um, asking a bunch of questions because that's just the type of person I am anyways. But I mean, there was always something I would be asking about, because there's certain situations you can't prepare for, and just being able to adapt within that, I would say was huge. But yeah,
Were, were these solo calls, or were you able to have either like another intern, or like maybe a boss, a supervisor with you?
I was allowed to have someone if I needed,
Mhm.
um, but I was able to do them on my own. Um,
Dang.
I obviously there's certain things that are out of my power and certain conversations, that I'm only an intern, and obviously that just doesn't go to my position role or I can't handle, obviously. But in that case, I would just um, send it up to, my boss and such from there.
Right, right. And I guess my last question regarding your actual work would just be, is there anything that you can think of that you'd be able to share that you haven't already shared? Any projects at all, or anything that you might be able to give more details on, or is it pretty under wraps?
I can talk a little bit about our annual kits we send out to our players.
Yeah, I thought that would be the most confidential. That's why I'd love to hear more about that.
I can't talk about what's in it, but I can talk about how one of our ongoing projects throughout this whole position was trying to get, product from companies, so they can be in our kit. We promote them and we send it out to our players, and then from there, the players are in the locker rooms before their training camps and they're talking to their other players, and word of mouth spreads, and we just want to make sure we have a great kit. And just that was always an ongoing project that took up a lot of time, to say the least. But um, it's really cool to say that I was a part of that,
Uh-huh.
um, alongside the other interns. So yeah,
And are these kits, they're sent out to, I mean, I'd imagine the people you're representing, but do you also send them out to clients, to players you're hoping to work with, or is it just for people who you're working with?
just for the people we're working with. So
Okay.
only the people that are with Disruptive.
And you said it took a lot of work to kind of like continue making these kits and stuff. Were they like um, highly personalized to the player, and there was like different stuff every time, or were they kind of standardized? You guys.
It was more of trying to think outside the box and make it unique products to send to our players,
Mhm.
to make sure that it's not just a little kit. It's got to be, you're gonna see and go, wow, like this is really
Right.
cool, and they're gonna want to tell their other friends on their team, like their other teammates and such about it. I would say, yeah.
Right, not like here's a Gatorade and some gloves or something. Actually, gloves would be cool. But yeah, I know you weren't sending just Gatorade, even though I think that'd be cool. Um, okay, well, thank you for sharing about your role and how you earned it. I think it's always super cool to hear about that stuff from other interns. And I want to get your final thoughts basically on your experience at Disruptive. And I want to start by asking what you think the most valuable thing is that you've learned from this entire internship.
Yeah, definitely. I've le- I've learned so much through this, but it's hard to say there was one thing. But I would say the first thing that comes to mind is kind of the etiquette within this industry,
Mhm.
um, learning how to, reach out to brands effectively, um, and such. I would say was huge. Just learning about that. My market research was also huge, learning how to do that effectively. Um, I would say those are probably the biggest takeaways.
Mhm.
And making sure like you think logically, you think in your client's kind of shoes, and just think of when things are the most convenient for them, or how they run their stuff. Do your research on them, and
Mhm.
just try to think like them as well. I would say those that type of stuff is what I've the biggest things I've learned through this.
That's awesome. Um, and would you say your internship has pushed you in a direction towards this type of industry, sports marketing, or has it kind of, made you think about other directions you want to go with your career?
I definitely feel it has pushed me that way. Um, as a person, I'm very open-minded,
Mhm.
and I definitely would like to do stuff in this industry, but I'm not against other industries as well.
Right.
I've been able to, make these connections within the agency that have been so beneficial for me, and so many little things that are so important, even within like the business world, um, that I I've just there's been so many beneficial things. I would say, yeah.
That's great to hear. And I guess finally on the topic of your thoughts on this whole thing, can you give some advice to other people who are looking for internships and maybe even internships specifically in like the sports marketing realm?
Yeah, definitely. I would say you know yourself the best. Do what you believe in. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. And to kind of, in my case, I would say like build off of like a passion you purely have already, regardless of your experience, regardless of that, I would still go for it.
Mhm.
And if you really believe it, you can make it happen. It's doable. And I would also say to put yourself out there as well, with it being going out, like going to meet someone, like a new person, one person, like each day, just going out and conversing, and just trying to, ask deeper questions and see what makes people tick, and just wanting to learn more, and just be super open-minded with what comes towards you, would be my advice.
Solid. Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said, man. I think if people followed that more, they'd definitely have a lot more success in the intern market. It's hard to put yourself out there, though, obviously, as you know, but you're doing it. So, anyways, that was great to hear everything you had to say. I think it's going to be very helpful for, yeah, for people who want to get an internship. And so we're going to wrap this up. And if anyone is interested in reaching out to Jack, I'm sure he'd be fine if you did that through LinkedIn. And if there are any other links he'd like to share, we will include those as well. But for now, Jack, I'd love to stay connected. But I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you, you too. Thank you so much.
Thanks.